Today we're talking about the GRUVN MUVN 13S. This paddle has ranked in the top 5 favorite paddles of some other paddle reviewers, and recently I ranked it as the #1 control paddle of 2023. We're going to dive into why this paddle is so good. We'll get into some accurate spin numbers, power rankings, and so much more. So without further ado, let's dink straight into it. The MUVN 13S comes in at $179. You can get $18 off by using code STS Pickleball at checkout, making the price just $161. The 13S comes with a paddle face eraser, which you can use to wipe off ball dust from your paddle face to make sure you're getting optimal spin in every game, and it also comes with a GRUVN head cover. The MUVN 13S is a 13mm paddle and is what we're calling a standard shaped paddle. So we have elongated paddles, hybrid paddles, and standard shaped paddles. Elongated paddles are going to be very power oriented. Hybrid paddles sort of an in-between power and control, and standard shaped paddles are going to be a bit more control oriented in general. The reason for this is that standard shape paddles have a larger sweet spot due to the shape, and because of this tend to also have a bit more plush feel and less pop. The issue with most standard shape paddles is that not only do they tend to lack power, but they're also generally 14 to 16 millimeters in thickness. So they have this super plush feel with a huge sweet spot, but because they aren't elongated or a hybrid shape, they lack a lot of power and pop and can feel underwhelming in those aspects. And that's where the MUVN 13S comes in. At 13mm, the 13S adds more power and pop into a paddle that is mainly control oriented in design. Utilizing GRUVN's high quality craftsmanship, the 13S really feels like the best of all worlds. Something about the shape and the feel of this paddle helps my brain sort of pre-gauge the line for drops better. I think this is because elongated paddles can feel a little clunky as far as control goes. It seems that with a face shape like the 13S and the 13mm thickness, I get the power and the pop I need to create aggression, but I also get that plush feel off the face. And because the face isn't elongated, when I'm moving the paddle face into the ball, I can really gauge the trajectory better than really any other paddle I've ever used. I got a ton of compliments on my drops from some 4.0 and 4.5 players telling me they were some of the best they've seen, and I really owe that all 100% to this paddle, as I've never really received compliments like that before. I was talking to my dad about this a ton on the drive home after multiple sessions with the MUVN 13S. I was telling him that every time I switched to an elongated paddles, my drops and my dinks suffered. Not only that, but the MUVN 13S is the lowest swing weight thermoformed paddle ever tested at a swing weight of only 99. This makes your hands at the net lightning speed and also allows for more linear movement through the ball, which again adds a ton of control. Also, one great thing about the swing weight is the benefit for anyone with tennis elbow. Swing weight is essentially measuring how much weight is closer towards the head of the paddle. So at 99, the paddle feels super light in the hands and really puts little to no strain on your elbow, which is really nice. If I was going to recommend any paddle for someone with tennis elbow or arthritis, this would definitely be the one. I could ramble about the feel and the analysis I've done on this paddle forever, but let's jump into the specs. The MUVN 13S comes in at 8 ounces in weight. The grip length is 5.3 inches, which I'm finding I sort of prefer personally over longer grip lengths. Enough for two-handed backhands, but not so much that the face feels too far from your hand and makes it hard to gauge the sweet spot consistently. The grip circumference is 4.125 inches, which is my personal favorite circumference. Okay, let's jump into some spin numbers. The spin for the GRUVN MUVN 13S is 2008 RPM measured and averaged over 20 serves. I noticed when I was ripping drives and serves, the ball was getting plenty of spin and felt really nice off the face. I think if you're a player who likes to be a bit more aggressive and hit drives and then transition into the control game, I would recommend adding some lead tape to the MUVN 13S. The swing weight is already so low, adding some lead tape to the 4 and 8 o'clock positions is just going to add more power. And it's also going to open the sweet spot up a little bit, make it a bit larger, and help add some linearity to your dinks and drops. Personally, I added one 5-inch strip of lead tape to those two positions and I'm loving it. So to compare the spin of the MUVN 13S to some of the big brands in the space, we have the Yola Perseus coming in at 1796 RPM and the new Selkirk Labs 006 coming in at 1833 RPM in my testing. Not to mention the Perseus is $249 and the 006 is $333, so at $161, the MUVN 13S takes the cake here easily. Anything over 1900 RPM in my opinion is top tier and is going to give you plenty of spin to get the job done. As long as the paddle is getting 1900 plus, I would be analyzing other parts of your game that you really want to help shine and purchase a paddle based on those aspects, not just spin alone. Although I am personally a spin junkie and it's one of my favorite parts of the game, this is just my best advice ultimately to anyone looking to really help their game. Now let's jump into the power ranking for the MUVN 13S. The 13S isn't created for power, but it will create more power than say the 14mm Yola Scorpius Anna Bright paddle, and it definitely has more power than the 16mm Yola Scorpius Colin Johns paddle. And to me, feels better than both as far as feel goes, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The standard shape of the 13S again is not a power-oriented shape, but what GRUVN did here is thermoformed it and then made it 13mm. So with those aspects added, it really adds enough aggression from a power standpoint to get the job done while maintaining that incredible control and feel. To me, most 13mm paddles just feel really rigid and unforgiving. There are some exceptions of course, but overall I tend to be a 16mm player because I like the more plush feel and the forgiveness. But I'm really surprised that the 13mm MUVN 13S doesn't have the rigid, tinny, off-putting feel. It feels plush enough, but maintains enough rigidity to have plenty of power and plow through. So as far as power ranking goes for the MUVN 13S, I gave it a solid 8.5 out of 10 for power and 8 for pop, which is the highest power ranking I've given any paddle of this shape. For reference, I had the 14mm Scorpius Anna Bright paddle at 8.1 for power and 7.9 for pop, and the 16mm Scorpius Colin Johns paddle at 7.9 for power and 7.7 for pop. At 8.5, I can still rip drives and create aggression to throw my opponents off while dominating my drops and dinks to win points more decisively. Lastly, at 8 out of 10 for pop, it has enough pop to make hand battles fun, but not so much that if I'm running for a ball, I'm going to pop it up and give them a free put away. It really does kind of blow my mind how balanced this paddle feels and how well they crafted it and positioned it in the marketplace for pickleball paddles. Major props to GRUVN on this one. So let's talk about the sweet spot. The sweet spot for this paddle is massive. I mean, as far as spot to face ratios go, this has to just about take the cake of any paddle I've tried. It does have a smaller face than a lot of other paddles, but damn, it just feels like massive. On normal elongated paddles, you have that pretty dead spot close to the edge of the paddle. I'm sure you've had those shots where you go to hit a drop or a reset or even a dink and it just dies off the face and doesn't even make it over the net. Well, with the 13S, you can say goodbye to those for good. I hit plenty of shots outside of the rather large sweet spot and didn't have any issues with the ball feeling totally dead off the face. Off-center dinks, drives, resets, and drops all felt totally usable and fine, which for me is a huge plus. So as far as sweet spot goes, I have to give the 13S a 9.3 out of 10. I'm pretty strict on my sweet spot ranking, and this is an incredible score. Actually, the highest one I've ever given. And it's for a 13mm paddle, which to me is pretty crazy. To compare that to my top ranked paddles for sweet spot rankings, we have the Volair Mach 1 Forza at 9 and the new Rhombus R1 Nova also at 9, and then we have the 6.0 Double Black Diamond at 9.1. It's not very surprising when you take the shape of this paddle into consideration only, but when you couple that with the fact that it's 13mm, that's a crazy high score for a 13mm paddle, and it deserves all of it. So let's wrap this up and talk about the control and the overall feel of the 13S. This really is the category where this paddle shines like crazy. Again, it kind of blows my mind that I'm about to say all of this about a 13mm paddle, but the 13S actually feels better and has better control potential than literally any other paddle I've ever tested. Receiving those compliments from my 4.0 and 4.5 friends at my local courts about how quote unquote perfect my drops and dinks were, that was one of the best compliments I've ever received as far as my pickleball game goes. Again, I really think the shape of this paddle just makes it easier on your mind to sort of pre-gauge the trajectory and the lines of your drops and your dinks so well. It's not elongated, so you don't have to gauge the distance of the paddle face as much. It's just sort of a rounded square, and you just need to push the center of it into the ball, and it just happens perfectly. I think it's a situation where you need to try it to see what I'm really talking about here, but it does feel amazing. As far as control goes, this paddle gets a 9.6 out of 10 in the control category, no doubt in my mind. There's not 1 inch of the face of this paddle that I can't get a solid drop or dink off of. And trust me, I'm not perfect. I miss the sweet spot more often than I would want to admit, and my sessions with the 13S were some of the most fun and controlled sessions of my pickleball career. I just can't talk highly enough about this one. There really isn't anything to even compare it to in this category for me right now, so I'm not even going to put anything else up on the screen. If I was going to pull a paddle out of my bag for control, it would be the MUVN 13S with no question. I think if you're the type of player who is looking to dominate your drops, dinks, and hand volleys, and you have enough power where you don't need something specifically power oriented to boost that part of your game, this is the paddle for you, no question. And it's definitely a paddle I will be using and rotating as a contender for my top 5 overall paddles of 2023. If you have any questions or want to talk paddles, leave a comment down below. Smash that subscribe button for more videos like this. I hope you're having a freaking wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.